Um, Talking about data analysts, data scientists, data engineers, business intelligence analyst, machine learning engineer. Like, take us through the ecosystem of data science and the different professions or the key role players there, and perhaps how they link.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. So
The money's still good, right? There by data science and tech.
uh, I mean, of course, man. But these things, bro, it really depends on companies, eh? Unfortunately,
Sure.
you'll be shocked that people who have 15 years of work experience, but yeah, they're still not earning what they deserve to earn. So these things, they primarily and heavily depend on companies. Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, the data science opportunities are still a lot out there, right? Um, the unfortunate thing though about data science is that it's companies start valuing a lot of people when they have experience. When you are starting out, you're gonna struggle a little bit to get opportunities. But obviously, you shouldn't give up, and this is why it's important for you to join communities like DataSphere Africa, where at least if you see that, let's say you've been spending a year, you're looking for a job, but you're not getting that job, right? Um, the good thing about joining our community is that you can find someone who's working at a certain company and say, "Hey, listen, man, there's an opportunity here for someone who's very junior. Um, I can plug you, so that you can get that job opportunity." So that would be that's the nice thing that we want to offer as well in our community. Hence, I'm saying it will be running itself. So I wouldn't say that there's still a huge saturation. I would say that unfortunately, most companies look for people that are experienced. But for people that are junior, companies feel like maybe it gets costly to upskill those people. They don't have enough patience to deliver those solutions. Sometimes companies feel like, okay, no, we gave you an opportunity, but after 2 years you leave us now that you have the experience. But it's not, I wouldn't say that. And remember what I said, right? A lot of companies at the end of the day, as long as they have data, they need data analysts, they need data scientists, because they need people who are going to help them make decisions that are data driven. When you make a decision that is data driven, data doesn't lie. When data says that, no, this product did well, it did well. You can't argue with that. You know what I mean? So it helps you to say, okay, now it means on our marketing side of things, we need to now put more effort in making sure that this product, we always give it to this segment of people because that's what they like, right? So that's what the data is telling us. So every company, as long as they have data, they need data analysts, they need data scientists. So what does that tell you? It tells you if a lot of companies get data science mature, or get matured in the form of data, there's a lot of job opportunities for data scientists. So that tells you that the jobs are actually a lot. It's just unfortunately some companies are not using those resources to make decisions. They're not using those data sets to say, I can have a data analyst or a BI analyst that analyze this data for me and tells me that what is the product that is doing well for me, or what are the things that I should market more, based on the data, or I should promote more. So that tells you that the jobs are actually a lot. It's just that a lot of companies are not yet data science mature.
Wow, what a wait. Data science
Yeah,
mature.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
um, talking about data analysts, data scientists, data engineers, business intelligence analyst, machine learning engineer. Like, take us through the ecosystem of data science and the different professions or the key role players there, and perhaps how they link.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. So how can I say this? Let's say you're working at a bank. I think I always like to, um, or let's say you're working at Spotify. Let's say you're working at Spotify. So you've got this number of music. You've got a lot of catalog, a lot of music that you can provide to people. Um, so now the first thing you do is this music is obviously in the form of audio and all of those things, right?
Sure.
It needs to be structured in a certain way, uh, and then it needs to be used in order for you to be able to bring it to the platform. Because remember, Spotify, what it does is it can recommend songs for you. It can give you songs that you're looking for. Um, so obviously, what that tells you is they have a database somewhere where when you say Birimarum, it gives you Birimarum back, right?
Sure.
When you search for Birimarum, it gives you Birimarum back. So that's data. So the first point of contact, whenever you're dealing with data, it's data engineering. You need data engineers who will clean your data, structure it, save it somewhere for you, which in this case is a database, right? Save it somewhere. So after you save that data, you now come to maybe let's say data scientists, right?
So those
So
are data engineers. So data
yeah,
engineers are concerned with cleaning the data and putting it in a database, really.
yeah, yeah, cleaning the data, structuring it well, putting it in a database. This can include sometimes real time data. If you're dealing with real time data, you need data engineers. They are well trained for that. Data engineering is a very big part of the data science field itself. If you don't have a data engineer and you have a lot of data, I can tell you now, a data scientist is going to be very frustrated because they don't know how to structure that data as better
Sure.
as a data engineer would. So there is no data science without data engineering, at least for the huge and lots of unstructured data set. You can have data that maybe is not that unstructured. There you can survive without a data engineer. But for something that is huge data sets, needs to be well structured. You need to have create a nice pipeline where you clean this data, save it somewhere, well prepared. You need a data engineer for that. So that's the first point of contact. The second point of contact would be data scientists. The main thing that data scientists do is they basically do two in one job, which in this case is analyzing the data. After analyzing the data, they say, okay, I've analyzed data. I've analyzed that these are the songs that we have in our catalog. How can I recommend other songs that are related to Birimaru, right? So, which is what Spotify does. Like, remember, Spotify it does recommend songs that are related to other songs. So they would then now create what we call recommendation models. So where they recommend a song based on what you like or what you listen to. So data scientists that just build a model, they will build that a neural network model using that data set and say, this is what people like in general. So they recommend what people like in general. So we call that content based filtering. No, collaborative filtering. So meaning we are giving you all the things that everyone likes collaboratively. They recommend those songs. That's why Spotify can say these are the top 10 songs. That's collaborative filtering or recommendations. Then they've got content based filtering, which is basically we recommend you based on what you like or what you watch, what you listen to, and what you watch. That's content based filtering. So, so a recommendation model will be created by a data scientist. The data scientist builds that model, does all the analysis that they need to build the model. Once they're done building the model, how does it now come into Spotify as an app? Before it comes to the app, we have okay. Let's say now the app. Let's start with the app. The app you will obviously need a software engineer for that or a software developer. Someone is going to create the software for you. Someone is going to say provides that functionality for when you click search, it's able to interact with whatever. when you yeah, just the interface, man, the look and feel, that's software engineering. You see that look and feel of Spotify, everything, that's software engineering and software development. Now, and that also includes UX design, by the way. UX designers was they're very good for designing the look and feel. So they work hand in hand with software engineers and software developers. Then after that, now that you know that, okay, this is the app that I'm going to create, the data engineer has built, the data scientist has built the model. The model now has to be created in the form of what we call an API, right? So meaning
What
that
is
this,
what is the? I guess API is an acronym. What is the definition of?
yeah, I think it's called application. What application programming interface, something like that. I forgot the full meaning of it. But
Okay, okay.
essentially, API. You know how most people explain what an API is. So an API, the best way to explain it. Let's say when you get inside a restaurant, you have a waiter or a waitress, right? The waiter and waitress is actually your API. So what they do is
Oh,
you tell them what they want, they go and get it for you and bring it back. That's what an API does.
oh, hands interface.
Yes, it's an hands, exactly, hands interface. So you tell them, I want a steak, I want it well done, I want it like this. They go in the background. That's what an API does. In the background, it will go and call that recommendation model that the data scientist has built, right?
Man, let me just pause you there, right?
Yeah,
You can be a good teacher, man. You can be a good lecturer. That
really.
there,
Yeah.
like that there, is gold.
I'm happy to hear that because I actually want to be a lecturer, man. You know this.
You
I've
will
told
be.
you.
You will be. I'm banker sure about that.
Yeah. I hope that this part of the video as well will sell that for universities for me.
Yeah, if I can sell it more,
Yeah.
Mahlatse Mariba co-supervised an honors project with me last
Yeah, that's
year. It was
yeah.
on vector databases and stuff like that. We had an honor student that we were working with. So this man is a fully fledged academic, for real.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that. Then I'm looking forward to the lecturing part, man.
Sure.
Yeah. So now that you have the data scientist who's built the model, you now have an ML engineer, right? Or an AI engineer. What they do is basically they will create the API for you. So they will interact with your model. Say, give me your model. Uh, their main goal is usually dealing with the infrastructure part of things. Hence, you remember I mentioned the infrastructure earlier. So the infrastructure. Now they say, okay, fine. What services will I need? How many people are going to use my resources? So they know that there's a lot of people that are going to use their app as an example. So they need to create services that have good memory, are able to handle a lot of requests at once. You understand? So they need to design a solution for that. And because this is a big project, in fact, before you can even start with building the app, you need another professional who we would call a solution architect.
Ooh.
Yeah. So what a solution architect does is a solution architect will actually create that solution for you end to end. You say, okay, Spotify itself, in order for it to never crash, because remember apps crash. In order for it to never crash, these are the services that you'll have to use. They will create a very nice diagram for you, a nice flow. Point of contact, this is your data set, huge number of data set. How can we make sure that this huge number of data set that a data engineer has structured for us, we are able to interact with it without crashing our application? So that solution architect, they will design that for you and then take that to an ML engineer and say, dude, I think these are the services that you should use on the cloud environment. Um, and this is the reason why. They have to provide that obviously with research as well. So they need to back up their facts. Yeah. Now, once they've done that, the ML engineer creates that API for you, which basically calls that model. When you search Birmaru, it goes back and says, give me songs that are related to Birmaru. And then yeah, it returns those songs back to you. That's ML engineering. You are doing, it's a lot of work, by the way. ML engineering, it's heavy. It's heavier than data science.
So
So there's a
ML,
saying, yeah,
so ML engineering is machine learning engineering.
yes. So it's
Is what
engineering the machine learning.
or engineering the machine learning.
Yeah, so engineering your machine learning solution. So remember what I said, you can't create you when you create a solution, it needs to be used by other people.
Sure.
And in order for you to use that solution, you need engineering. You need engineering side of things. Engineering side includes what kind of memory do I need for my solution? How fast does it have to be? Um, how can I handle situations where uh, people search for the same thing over and over? For example, in order to improve your speed, as an example of your application for Spotify, let's say in a day you have a lot of people searching for Birimarung at once. What you can design in your solution, you can say, I don't want to be calling my database on over and over because people are calling the same thing. You implement what we call caching. So what caching does is basically it's like you're storing your answer of Birimarung. You're storing it somewhere in memory. And then when Ben calls for Birmarung and then I call for Birmarung maybe 5 hours later, it no longer goes to the database, which obviously takes up a lot of memory and takes up time.
Oh,
It calls it straight into memory because it knows it's already in memory. It calls it and give you back. And that's why
uh-huh.
apps are able to perform faster for you. We call that caching. And you can decide for how long do you want to save your answers in memory as well. You can save it for only a day. You can decide for how long you do it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it done?
Yeah. So that's pretty much done. So that's ML engineering. And then you have UX designer. UX designer will just design for you the look and feel of Spotify, or, okay, I want it to look beautiful like this. I want it to be, so they work hand in hand with the software developers. So
Yeah.
I'm just not sure exactly how they work hand in hand, but I know that they design the look and feel for you. And then the software developers are the ones that will create that solution. What the software developers will do is they will ask the ML engineer to give them the API. So the software engineers, you need to, as an ML engineer, you give the software engineer the API, and then once you've given them the API, they're able to call your API on their app, which is Spotify. They're able to call that API and hit it over and over and over. So that's essentially how those guys work together. Might have missed other things like product manager, as an example. What a product manager basically does in the tech environment, they are the ones who probably came up with this idea of Spotify to start with in a company. So a product manager is someone that actually designs a product and say, this is the product that I think we should have.
Oh,
And they sell
wow.
it. They sell it in the company. Once they've sold it, they now start working with data engineers, data scientists, yeah, to get that solution working. And they own that solution. They own that product. They get a lot of money. If that solution works really well, they get good bonuses. Um, so that's the less technical thing that you can do as well in tech. You can become a product manager.
And what about business intelligence analyst? Where do they fit in?
Yeah. So I forgot to mention, yeah, we'll come to business intelligence analyst. I forgot to mention data governance as well. So there's certain frameworks that also needs to be followed, right? Uh,
Oh,
you can become a data governance specialist as well. So and this hands in hands with, um, this goes hands in hands with cyber security as well.
sure.
Data governance and cyber security, they go hand in hand. So what those guys then do is they basically say, how can we protect our data? What are the frameworks that we need to follow in order to make sure that people do not leak our data? That is, you don't have
Uh,
coding there involved as well. So, and you can still become a very good professionals, there's still good money there because it's a very important role as well. Yeah.
That's more on the legal stuff, right?
Yeah, it's more on the legal stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah,
then your BI analyst, right? So your BI analyst, business intelligence analyst is pretty much the same as data analyst, um, in a sense that what they do is they analyze the data for you and they create dashboards for you. Especially business intelligence analyst, they specialize in creating dashboards. They're very good at that. So remember that as a company, you always want something where you can quickly look at and say, I don't know, let's say maybe you're working at a bank and say like, how many loans did we give out last month, man? You were able to
sure.
quickly, a business analyst would have already created those views or those graphs for you. You just go to the dashboard. And that's why when you go into companies have screens. Those screens, they've got dashboards, different dashboards that were built by business intelligence analysts and data analysts. Those dashboards, when a CEO or a head of a certain department, they quickly want to see what is a certain product performing well and whatnot. They can just check that dashboard. Some of these dashboards are also used for monitoring. So remember this solution I've mentioned, Spotify. How does Spotify has to monitor, um, to make sure that the apps are not crashing and all of those. You can have a business intelligence analyst do that for you as well. They will create a nice dashboard. You just have to tell them what is it that you want to monitor, what services, give them the metrics, which is the numbers. They take those numbers and then generate them into graphs. So yeah, they are specialists actually, business intelligence analysts.
Wow, man, this just unties this whole concept of umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, like mutu kabantu. Like
Mm.
it's
Yeah,
literally that, man. When that final product Spotify is there, the amount of collaborations in the background.
it's a lot, brother. It's a lot. Netflix, I'll give you Netflix as an example. Do you remember when we were watching? I don't know if you watched. They were streaming the Mike Tyson fight with that guy on
It
Netflix.
crashed, man. It crashed. I
Crashed,
tried to watch. I couldn't. I
crashed.
stayed up.
It
I
crashed.
stayed up late night, man.
What does that tell you? So what that tells you is they did not expect a huge traffic. Maybe they expected that a lot of people will watch, but the services that they designed could not handle the number of people that want to use that service. So meaning the number of people that are calling the API are too many at once. So it's like a restaurant. A lot of people, you go into a restaurant, a lot of people say, I want steak, I want steak. But the number of
Yeah.
the number of steaks you have in the fridge, they're no longer enough now. What do you have to do? You have to now call Ben and say, Ben, do you know some Ben, can you quickly fetch, uh, get a truck, call someone to bring me more meat?
Sure.
That's what was happening at Netflix. So, but because it's a big company and they're very good, obviously they are very good at these things. So what that happens is that process, we call it load balancing, by the way, in tech. That process, it's a load issue. We call it load balancing. So are you able to balance the load or the number of requests that people are asking? So how do you handle that? When you design a solution, you you basically create things like what we call auto scaling groups, where your application needs to scale up. When it starts seeing that there's a lot of people calling and I'm no longer handling this, it needs to scale up on its own. So, meaning it needs to create up, if it's memory that you need, it needs to create up memory in its own and say, listen, I am no longer able to handle this. More memory. Same as if you are in a restaurant, a chef quickly can tell you, hey, I'm no longer able uh, to handle this number of requests at once. Maybe they know that someone who was working as a waitress, they can cook and say, okay, listen, Ben, stop doing the waitressing. Come here and help us with cooking this thing. You are scaling up now so that you can be able to quickly give back the information. So what that happens, so if you check, the app eventually came back up without issues. So that means they were able to quickly scale up and solve that
Yeah.
problem. Yeah. But if it keeps failing and it's not scaling up on its own, sometimes you need to go manually and do the things and scale it up, you know.
And now all of these professions, right?
Mm.
Um, to get into them, is it standardized into qualifications, or each of them obviously have different qualifications? What I mean by that is that to be a data scientist versus to be a data engineer versus a software engineer versus a UX designer, um, they probably require different qualifications to get into them, or do they just, there is one entry level,
Yeah,
anybody can get into
yeah.
any of the
So,
other?
yeah. Sorry, before we continue, there's another one that I forgot to mention, which is also important. It's
Sure.
called a tester, right?
A tester.
A tester. Yeah. So when
Yeah.
you create a solution, when you create that API, you need people called testers, which are actually going to test your solution. What they do is they test your solution differently. Let's say that you told them that I have Burimarung, I've got Amapiano songs, and I also have um, um,
Wachamkuku.
Wachamkuku as an example, right?
Sure.
Now, what happens is, let's say, let's just assume that your solution that you've built, it's very good at recommending songs that are related to Amapiano, right?
Okay.
But when somebody searches for gospel or Wachamukuku, it's not good at returning back songs or recommending you songs that are related to Wachamukuku. Maybe when you, I'm sure you've seen this where Spotify sometimes, after remember what Spotify does is, let's say you listen to Wachamukuku. The song that has to come later, it has to be still song that related to Wachamukuku, right?
Mm.
Without you even asking it. It plays songs that are related to what you're listening to in the background. So now let's say in that case, Spotify, for some reason, it's not recommending good songs that are related to Wachamukuk, but it can return good songs that are related to Bir Maroon, Amapiano. So that means they've got good recommendation when it comes to house music, but not good recommendation maybe when it comes to gospel music. So what a tester is going to test your application, is going to test those things. And they will tell you before you even deploy it and give it to people and say you can start using my software or my app. A tester would have told you that, Chief, this thing is not doing well when it comes to this and this and this. This thing, I've tested it, it doesn't do this, doesn't do that. They also do what we call load testing. So load testing basically, you when you do load testing, you basically uh, call that API with lots of requests all at once to see can your application crash. So meaning they try and crash your app essentially and see if can it crash. Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, so that's what testers do. They are very, very important in big organizations. You cannot work without them. Um, so now coming to the question of, do you need specialized qualification for these things? So basically, with these things, if you check a lot of people that are in tech, maybe they studied mathematics, others they've studied applied maths, others they studied computer science. But after having studied computer science, people branch into different professions because you can see from what we just discussed, there's different of these
sure.
professions. Yeah. So someone decides to become a data engineer, another one decides to become an ML engineer, another one becomes to become a QA tester, so which I just mentioned. So to become a tester, um, so essentially what this tells you already is that the background is not like specialized yet, but once you start going into that profession itself, you will need some form of bridging gap that specializes you. You can't become a UX designer without knowing how to make things look nice. So obviously you'll have to do some sort of short course somewhere that can bridge that gap. But all
Sure.
of you probably come from one background, which is computer science or mathematics or engineering. You know, for like me as an example, I came from engineering field, but I became a data scientist, an ML engineer, and for me to become those things, I needed to bridge that gap because now I'm
Sure.
specializing. Well, now I'm specializing as an ML engineer.